Well, hey, how you doing? Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation about kids and teenagers, and I think we tackled it well, that infant stage. Although, man, it just felt like we only had like a nugget. We have our in-house expert with us.
Yes,
the only Heidi Bybee.
Nailed it.
Bringing it today, and we're thankful for her time that she's willing to hang out with us. Todd and I don't get a lot of people wanting to hang out with us, so when
we'll
people
take
say
what we can get, right?
That's right. When people say yes, we just embrace it to the best of our ability, and so it's really exciting to be able to have this conversation with you. So
expert, huh?
Well, I said in-house expert, so
don't go too far with that.
I mean, there's a lot of room.
I do feel my head just
There's a lot. It got big there for a second.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing me back down.
There's a lot of space out there for other experts. No, but it's exciting. We get to have this conversation because we all are parents, and we kind of went through who we are and what we had or have in our house, and Todd and I are still in the throes of having kids in house, and you have set them free, and
I'm free.
You and Kevin, as we said a moment ago with Aladdin, in a whole new world. It is. I'm just humming it in my head.
Before the episode started, so for those of you who don't understand that reference, there you go.
Yeah, sorry we don't have some backstory for the singing that went on. Like
we were singing Aladdin. Yes, we were.
You whistled.
I did.
Whistled. Mm-hmm.
Partly because I forgot the words. So just gonna be honest.
It's like a nice hum.
Yeah,
that's a great choice then.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we tackled like this idea of like, what does it look like to start from the infancy up until like just before kids get into preschool, and yeah, I know we didn't answer every question, but definitely felt like there were enough things there, man, that you could spend a lot more time. But maybe you don't want to watch more than 25 minutes of Chris and Todd, and Heidi probably, you could probably go up to 35, 40.
Yeah, for sure.
You're just being kind now because you feel bad about the expert comment.
I don't really feel bad about that at all. And
I don't know if he feels bad for a lot of things.
No, I hate the condescending tone that you don't think I'm kind. I really think I'm a kind individual.
We're going to need another episode for all of that.
Yeah. Don't make me call my wife.
Well,
Rachel, am I kind? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, for this episode, we're going to dive into more of the elementary phase. And so kind of what changes, what kind of things do you look forward to or in helping parents navigate if they're in it, or, hey, we're heading there. I know for me, like that is a big phase we're in right now. Like sure. I've got a 4th grader, a 2nd grader, and a kindergartner. And one of the big changes I notice is
lack of sleep.
Well, no, you gain sleep. I feel like gain sleep? Like with the elementary phase.
I'm exhausted just thinking about you saying you have a kindergartner. Like my brain goes.
But what I noticed with kindergarten, for all our kids, as soon as they stepped into that, they needed an early bedtime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they were exhausted at the end of the day. Because daycare, they'd come home and maybe they took a nap during daycare or that kind of stuff. But man, when they hit kindergarten, it was like they had to. Wow, there's people all day. There's a teacher. There's all this, and so every kid, like it was, it could be a bedtime of 8:30 or something like that. But then it was like you might need to go to bed at 7:37. And even our kindergarten teachers would go, "Hey, just be prepared. When Wednesday or Thursday hits, you will probably have a meltdown."
Yeah,
because just emotionally they are taking on a lot. It's a big adjustment from preschool up to kindergarten, and so that was just a learning curve for us of being able to navigate that. But I do think in this phase, there becomes a lot more about rules. It starts in preschool,
sure,
but then it's a lot more of like, no, this is, I feel like Dean and I are having more conversations of like, no, you need to do your homework and here's when you need to do it. And setting those expectations of, especially with school in place, but also how do we treat other people, all those kind of things to where they can have now, you're having a conversation back and forth.
Yep, absolutely.
And so as a parent, you now are, okay, this is the rules establishing phase.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't really do it. And some of it you did, but it was a lot of telling them no in the preschool phase. Like, no, we're not going to do that. And you would just make that. Now you're trying to see, okay, do you see like the value of this rule?
Yeah.
Now, they may not see the full value of it until they're a teenager, hopefully, but they're beginning to see some of that. Like, okay, do you see why we told you to do your homework earlier? Or do you see why we wanted you to pack your lunch the night before? It's those kind of things.
This is where parenting just kind of kicks into high gear. Like you're a provider, right? Like there's a 4 phases: provider, parent, coach, and then friend at the end. And but yeah, I agree. And I don't know, maybe I would assume you saw this. This is where parenting kicks in, and you get you get down to the nitty gritty of like, all right, here's how it's going. And some days are mountaintop experiences, and some days you're like, I don't know what I signed up for, and I don't know if this is it. But there's beauty in it because you're learning. You're getting stretched and growing, and my mind just like, I feel like I'm in like the quantum leap, right? Like I'm Scott Bakula, like going back in time to that time where I had kids and remember picking my girls up and going, they were excited to see me because that was just a fun moment. And they're still excited to see me, but it's just one of those weird moments, you know, where you look back into that and they're taking up so much. I'll just say this, we haven't varied from bedtime, which I know throws my girls off, especially some of their friends when they hear, oh, you go to bed at that time? Yeah. It just works. And, you know, now Morgan's at college and she can do what she wants. And that's awesome. But 8:30, 8:45 we've been solid on that. So anyway.
Yeah, this is such a great stage, those elementary years, to start building kind of that culture that your family has. Like,
yes,
why don't we do what that family does? This is why, like taking the time to really explain things. I remember with our kids, they would, instead of just asking why, we trained them to say, may I ask why? And sometimes we'd say no. Because sometimes it was like someone wanted to give them a ride somewhere or something, and we didn't feel comfortable with that family. I mean, it's part of my big responsibility to guard what people I allow into their lives.
Yep.
I'm not afraid of hurting someone's feelings by saying, no, my kid can't go with you. I'm just not afraid of that. If it happens, it happens. But the reason we would say, just ask, may I ask, may I ask why, is because later on we're going to say, this is why mom was concerned about this. And this is why I said no to you going over to that friend's house. And explain. It's just such a time to build, like, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. And so they just get this great understanding. And, we can really schedule our families up to the brim. So leaving the room to have these conversations is so important. Like, anything you had questions over today, or you seemed upset when mom and dad said no to this. Why were you upset? Okay, hearing them out, not interrupting them, hearing them out and say, let me tell you what we were thinking on our end. Like, this is a great time to start that respect that flows back and forth. It's so crucial to have that respect that goes back and forth. This is a good time for the kids to see it. So, yeah.
No, I would agree. Building that culture is so huge, and having those opportunities to be like, we talk about our house. We cheer for the Hawkeyes in our house. We laugh in our house. We serve in our house. And we make church a priority, and we love others, and we spend time with family. Like, those are things that are culture that sometimes you think about, well, what did we forget or what did we miss? And you look back now and you go, no, we were specifically doing just that. And you're like, man, maybe we didn't screw this up, and it's exciting when you
see some wins. Yeah.
I mean, when you see some wins, or you see the fruit, like you're talking about, you see the fruit of what you intentionally did. And granted, some of those times are not easy times when you tell your kids, like, hey, this is a personal thing for us. We don't do sleepovers. We just don't. Listen, I get it. Other friends do sleepovers. It's not that we don't trust you, that we don't love you. We've just made a decision that we want you home and prepared to do what we're going to do the next day, whether go to church. And man, we had some sad kids for times, but ultimately, again, that was a culture thing for us, that we just said, we're not going to do that. But that's just like one small snippet, right? But it all envelops into the conversation of what culture and what things do you want to establish.
Yep.
Like, Todd, for you, like what have been some of the big things for you and Tina that as you've been in that place now, seeing Emma take the next step that we're going to talk about almost next, that you guys have established.
Yeah, she's getting into that almost preteen kind of age, and so and she's there. But
fantastic kid.
Yeah.
Fantastic kid.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I think one of the big things that it's taking, like, okay, what values do we want to see?
Yeah.
This takes work. Like, you gotta, as a couple, like, think through them and process them, and you and your spouse being on the same page, or even if you're a single parent, like, okay, so what am I going to do with this?
That's a good one, on the same page.
Like, because if you're not, you're going to create a lot of confusion for your kid, and And hear me, your kid is innocent in some ways, but they can pick up real quickly when you and your spouse are not on the same page. They know exactly what to do. Well, I know mom's going to say no to this, but I know dad will say yes to this. And so you go, wait, what just happened? But I think for us, seeing like values of like, hey, we want our kids to know God. Like, so I go, okay, well, how do we do that? Well, some of it started in that early phase, that baby phase a little bit, but more in the toddler phase where we would be like, okay, let's pray together before we go to school. Let's pray together tonight at night. And then one of the other things that I would, and so you see that, and sometimes it was, we'd start reading Bible stories with them. You get that kids Bible that has just some good stories in it. Well, now we're seeing as they get older, especially Corbin and Emma, which is just, this is a win. I'm not saying we didn't push for this, we didn't want, but they want to start reading the Bible on their own. Yeah. And so now, instead of the nighttime being just prayers, it's, Tina and I were joking, this is becoming a long night preparation. But it's, hey, they want to read a chapter together with us. And even I think I heard Corbin like, hey, like, he wants to do a little prayer journal. Like, it's those kind of things. I'm like, okay, hey, we've that thing we established earlier, we're seeing our kids now go, oh, Dad, we want to take it to a next level. Now, there's other areas we're still working on. It's like, hey, one of the values that we want to have is, like, Heidi, what you brought up, like there is a little bit of respect. And so sometimes Emma likes to push against like, well, no, that's not fair. And so we have to have those, well, yeah, life is going to be unfair. So let's talk through that a little bit. You're not always going to get what you want, but each kid is different, and you start to really see this.
Absolutely. Like
Emma gets frustrated when it's, when the best way to describe it is it's this kind of, hey, I want to be where everybody else is at, and I want to experience what everybody else is. It's kind of that fear of missing out. And so she gets really, and she's kind of one of those kids, if you change things on her, she doesn't like it. Like, give you an example, the other night, we said we were going to go to ice cream, but then we had some things come up and we're like, hey, we're not going to be able to. Well, what was funny is I learned that I was that kid in my family because my mom and dad had to tell me why these changes. I mean, they could tell our younger brothers to be like, okay, whatever. And that happens with Corbin and Avery and Nora. They're like, all right, we move on. Next thing. Emma, we're going to have to teach, hey, some adaptability, like, hey, things are going to change and you're going to have to be okay with that. But she struggles with that. Corbin, on the other hand, it's a whole different ballgame. He's a second grader and he is more of like, he can adapt, but he gets very angry with sometimes himself because it's very like, did I win at this? And so I'm like, ooh, okay, there's something there that we may, I don't want them, because you see two things there. Emma's getting her value sometimes in these things, and you start to see this in this age. And Corbin's starting to find his value in some of this. If I win, then people notice me. And these things start to pick up at this phase. And so as a parent, paying attention to that and going, okay, what values do we want to establish that counteract some of the things that I go, I don't know if you can control them feeling that. I think that's sometimes just a temptation that people walk into, and that all kids are going to be like, well, it seems like I get noticed when I win. Or I get noticed when I'm able to do the things that everybody's at. I mean, all those kind of things. So it's just like, wait, as parents, what do we want to establish with them? And tough question, are we fueling any of that that's unhealthy?
Well, I think some of that is this reality that with 4 kids, I talk to other parents with 4 kids, and it's interesting to watch how similar they are. Like the first one's the achiever, right? The second one wants validation and needs this. And the third one, you'll see these tendencies. And the fourth one, depending on those hierarchies of the kids and the amount of kids that you have and the amount of time and attention you spend with them. But there are noticeable things. I just chuckle. I'm like, hey, I wonder if your third kid's like this. They're exactly like that. And you just kind of laugh to yourself like, oh, you're really going to enjoy number 4 or you're not, but and the beauty of all those transitions as they go down the line, as they interact, as they work well together, as they transfer what you had taught in our teaching. And I think that's just a beautiful thing and a good reminder that it's vital for each kid. It is, you can't treat all your kids the same. I think that's one of the things you kind of alluded to. You can't teach them the same things because they may not receive it the same way. They're not looking at it the same way. and they're definitely not processing it a lot of the time the same
Consequences
way.
has got to be different.
Oh yeah, yep.
Because I was like, how I would punish Emma for some of her behavior, I wouldn't do that to Corbin because it's a different value issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Discipline, same page and different. Same page.
Now,
and
there's some things that I go, hey, regardless, this is how we will be as a family. So there's like principles and values you're going after, but you're also recognizing each kid's going to have their own hurdles they've got to get past.
Yep.
And helping them see it is, I think, sometimes a battle. So then that's why the different consequences come out, because every kid's going to be like, well, why did they get that? Well, because we're the parents, or because, and I don't think you need to explain the full thing of it.
Now, go back to what Heidi said.
I think it's a great example. It's like, well, sometimes you're going to get the answer of, I'm not going to share that with you.
So Heidi, how did you and Kevin come to the realization of the things that you wanted to establish when Josh was there, and then following up with the girls? Like, did you guys talk about that? Did you guys say, okay, hey, these are the things that are already in place for you guys as a family, or were there things that you just played by ear when Josh started in that season of life?
We had such a blessing of just having great parents ourselves. There was a heritage that was passed down. We were raised so similarly. And then when we met each other, our beliefs were the same. And so, our interests or our passions in life might not all be the same, but our foundational beliefs were the same. And so to us, we just parenting, we were on the same page, it seemed, from day one. Now, there's sometimes when we would feel the other one was maybe overreacting to a kid a little too much, or needed to step away for a little bit. We, especially me, I can come across, I'm a person of justice. And so when I see something that that kid knew was wrong, first of all, they knew it was wrong, and they deliberately disobeyed. I don't like that.
No, Rachel did that to me this morning. She was like, pump the brakes. You're coming in a little hot. Coming in hot. So.
I'm all about, making things right, and that kid better make it right. And sometimes, and I am going to follow through, and I am going to be consistent on my parenting, but I also need to have it bathed in grace at the same time. So we did have a code word. We love to go to the Tetons. We love the smell of sage in the air. So our word was sage.
I've heard you say this. I just don't know how it'd work, like in the middle of the conversation.
Sage.
You can't call out the other parent in front of the child, right? No, you walk by and you go, sage. Yes. You just like whisper as you're walking by. Gotcha. And sometimes that makes me more angry, but I trust his judgment, and sometimes I will pull away.
Like, not right now.
Later,
no
and
sage.
I'll say, "Here's the backstory."
Did you say I'm sexy? Like, yes, yes, I did. Yes,
you better have. No, sometimes later I'll say, "Well, here's the backstory of that," and at the same time, I just you've got to be humble and gracious towards your spouse. And when they're making the best call in the moment, you've got to honor that. Because when I'm getting just hot under the collar and reacting stronger than I should to that moment, I need to be able to trust that Kevin can call me out on that. And he did many times, but it was always in a very respectful way. We're always encouraging each other. You're a great parent, and encouraging each other at the same time, not just always calling each other off.
Hey, you got to get better at this. You got to get better at that.
Like, wow, you're too much there. But so that was critical to us. But for those families that didn't have that upbringing, like, that's where we say, man, find those people that you trust and you respect, that you can see that they have raised, they're ahead of you, right? They're ahead of you in this parenting game, and you see what's happening in their family. You want that for your family, and you go to them and you ask it, and you go to God's word before anything else. And there's so much scripture on how to love appropriately and how to love well. And just looking at honoring one another. Wow, there's a billion things you can pull out of that.
Well, this isn't just parenting. Like, I hope you're listening to this. This is a marriage tip. Like, what are those core beliefs that have to be there? They really like kayaking or going to the Tetons. They really love code words, sage, whatever,
No,
this idea.
sage.
No, Sage. Rachel would just be like, hey, I think you kind of blew that one. And I'd be like, oh, yes, I probably did. Anyway, but those core beliefs are so essential. And it sets the table so well for you to have those conversations. And it sets the table for you to be kind of cut out some of that strife that can easily come in as you're working on raising, the kids that you are and where you want it to go and what you believe it should be and how you believe it should be.
Yeah.
I think, those are vital things.
And here's the thing, when you think, I didn't handle that well, apologize to your kid.
Yep.
That's
Those have been
so
some of the
important.
most, you almost see visibly a light go on with your kids the first time you do it. They go, oh, like I can just see my kids going, oh, okay, thanks, Dad. Like, like they just were like, it's almost they weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
But it's a big moment for them.
And when you later get to the teenage years where you're both flexing in front of each other, like they have already got this foundation of mom cares more about loving me well than winning the argument. That foundation's already been set.
And there's a value piece there. It's more about like, I need to get my kids to do what I want them to do. Oh, hold on. Like if you build that, then the outcome is just going to be more of like this legalistic parenting approach of just like, well, I said do this, so you better do it. And so the love piece is missing in that part of it. And let me tell you, it's easy to go into that phase. Like, I'm your parent. This is how it will be done.
These are the rules. Don't blow it. Don't get outside the lines. Let's go. And then, like you're talking, you miss the most important aspect of like, okay, outside of any of that, I love you more than these rules.
You do that, and then you go, but I love you, right? You're like, I love you. Okay, we're good, right? And you're like, I don't know if they felt that.
I didn't see that.
And they know when you're full of crap.
Yeah.
Like your kids know when you're full of it.
Parents have a great, like there's no parents. Your kids have a great detector on that.
Yes.
Like they are fantastic at picking up like, that seems off.
Yeah. And I would say with those rules and those, this is how we're going to do this and this is why I want you to do this. You also have to check yourself. Like, why do I want them to do that? Is it something simple like, no, I want you to wear that because all the other parents that are going to be in the room and you want your kid to look the best. Like what are the things you're shooting for here? Are they rooted in the right things of why you're trying to get your kid to do something? Is it a safe face for you, or is it to show off to other people, or is it because you just want to control the situation? You got to check what you're pushing. If they ask you why, do you have a solid answer that you should not be ashamed to say out loud?
Right.
And are you modeling it? I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, I mean, and I don't think I understood that as often, as quickly as I should. Like, I need to model this, and I need to, like, if I say I'm doing this, I need to make sure that I'm following that out, like we're talking about. Man, one of the things that I loved about this age was daddy dates. I know we're kind of shifting from this, but I think some of those moments and some of those things get learned when you get that one-on-one time with them. I mean, you can sit and color at the thing, but we would go out and, like I said in the previous podcast, we would go to BAM and read books. Morgan and I, Chuck E. Cheese was a big taker of tokens, for a long time. But man, nothing's better when one of your girls strikes the 300 ticket count and you're like, you're the best. We're going to get such a great prize today, or just spending that one-on-one time and listening to them and just investing in them. And
I think there's this, especially in this phase, there's like, yes, you're developing rules, but don't forget that other side of it.
Oh man.
Of like, hey, like, am I also creating the fun time and the connecting time? That they know. And one of the things we try to do as a family is like when dinners are a big deal to us, sitting down and being like, hey, let's talk. What's the best part of your day? What's the worst part of your day? And our kids have gotten to a point they're so used to that they usually lead the conversation now. And I remember taking that from advice, I think even from Pastor David, his mom said, is like, best thing you can do right now is get your kids talking and keep them talking. And so are you creating an environment like that? Because if it's too much on this rules side, the rules are important, establishing that, well then what eventually the relationship starts to tilt so much one way that the other part's not being built. The
Yep,
connection piece is
absolutely.
getting lost. The love piece even is dwindling just a little bit. They know you care or you love them, but they don't know if you care about them. Does that make sense? Like
And-
there's a difference
yeah.
there.
And so important. I found I'd catch myself a lot in this. And I think both Kevin and I did this. When they get to talking, we jump right into coaching and correcting.
Yeah.
We're really, both of us are kind of a firstborn. There's 6 years between me and the next one, and he's definitely a firstborn. So it just, we're all about doing sometimes and achieving.
So guilty. Of
And
that. Yeah.
let them talk and just shut up. Just let them talk for a while. And then maybe later you ask a question. Do you think maybe you felt that way because of this? Not every moment has to be you correcting and
Or you coaching.
and teaching and all that. Just let them feel free to just go ahead and talk about all they're thinking in their head. Otherwise, know your kid's not going to talk because they get exhausted by what comes back, or they feel condemned a lot of times
Or
when
they
they
don't
open their
measure up,
mouth.
like all the things that we
Yeah.
do to our kids, like all the pressures we put on them, or you need to do this, or you
Yeah.
got to do this, or you got to measure up. And we do. You have to be really careful because, man, at this stage, all those things are growing and developing and coming into play. And it's, man, it's such a formative time.
Yeah, and these are thoughts, I mean, it's not like there was something that that kid did. It wasn't an action. These are thoughts that you're allowing them to say, like, say they I'm wondering if God really exists.
Yeah.
Let them say that. It's not like I just saw you steal bubble gum from the store and I'm going to correct you.
Yeah.
So it's different. It's a different scenario.
It really is. And those are, I mean, those are so important aspects for them to say that. Like what they say is they're forming thoughts and ideas, and you listening to them is going to you're going to have opportunity to discuss and to correct, right? But it doesn't mean they believe it. And I think so many times we rush to try to form and try to mold them in this moment when we really just need to listen and need to, how do we come alongside this and ask them the right questions and say, what is this? How does this make you feel? Or where do you think we're going with this? And it's such an important aspect, specifically when it comes to relationship with God and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And relationship with you. So
this is the most, I feel like these elementary years, these are the years where you're really building a relationship with your kids.
Yep.
And if you're finding, wow, we're just too busy to have these discussions, you got to change that.
yeah,
You gotta change
You
it.
can say they're the most important thing in your life, but if your schedule doesn't show it,
Yep.
something's off.
Yep.
Something's off. Yep.
Well, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
One of the things that Rachel talks about, and this kind of goes in, we started like our family devotional time during this time with Morgan, and we started with Veggie Tales. So you start somewhere like, hey, pick the Veggie Tales you want to watch tonight. And that was our family devotional for a long time. And like, hey, that was really great, and got her thinking about this. And it became a thing. I feel bad for Jordan. Jordan didn't get any Veggie Tales. So like she's, got reintroduced to all that, after the sisters, because now we do a book, a devotional book that my mom gets us every year. But one of the things that my wife says, and she said for a long time, like, listen, we need to give God this time. He gives us all day to do what we want to do in the way we want to do it. The least we can give him is this 15 to 20 minutes before bed to either read a book or watch a video and then pray together as a family. And that's important. You can't cut out those areas of time where you want to establish something that involves time.
Well, I think think of more of I think it was Nicholas who shared this, more of a drip approach.
Yep.
Like instead of trying to, we're trying to make up for all the time that we lost, or, hey, we're so busy now we're trying to go, like, no. Like you said, like, let's make sure it's a constant in their lives. Because I think most kids will only recognize a value when it's consistently in their lives.
No, I would agree. Yeah.
Like, hey, we do this on a consistent basis. We try to make this. And I'm not saying, like, even take, for instance, the dinners I talked about. I was like, it's not like we're getting 7 out of 7.
Yeah.
But we are shooting for, hey, at least 4 every week.
Yeah.
Where we sit at the table and we talk and we connect. Like, those are things. But then there's other pieces, like at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, like, it's this constant drip effect that it's like, hey, they're going to eventually catch it.
Yeah.
And that's the thought of, like, it's going to get caught, not learned in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the part that you got to go, there's learning moments, don't get me wrong, but what are you trying to help them catch?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so crucial because we're talking about how aware kids are at this age, right? they're going to easily catch, I'm not worth your time. And also they can see, and God's not worth our time, I guess, because whatever else we're getting to is so much more important.
Yep.
They're realizing if God's worth the family's time, we're spending time with him, and am I worth your time because you're spending time with me? Yeah. This, which sets them up for all sorts of relationships that they're going to allow into their life because they're setting a standard of what they're worthy of.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. I love that. Like for us, time together, like Rachel and I's date time. When we lived in 05 to 08, when we lived in Rapid City, we really said, okay, this is it. And our girls would love it. Like, are you going on a date tonight? Are you out of here? Like, do we get a babysitter? Do we have somebody coming over? And, thankfully we had kids from the youth group that would watch our girls and have a blast with them while we could go. And it was, at first it was unnerving for Rachel. Like, they want us gone. Like, I don't know if I want my kids to say they want us gone. No, but they expected us to have that time in those moments. But yeah, it's so funny that you kind of bring those up, those things that you watch them value and that you establish that's so key for you to develop in a family.
Yeah.
And I know I say this so many times, but I when you're spending that intentional time with your child, you don't realize what a gift you're giving yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That when they leave, right? When they leave, it is such a gift to yourself. Like I drank in every moment I really could have. I really did try to do the best I could of teaching and preparing them. And I didn't miss all that time of them being home. And it's time. Yep. I can feel it's time for them, and it's time for me for them to go.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. There's a book recently that I came across, and it was actually Martina introduced it to me. It's like interesting. It's 50 things I want my kids to know before they become an adult. And so they list all the things, but their parents did it with them.
Okay.
And so then when they got to, I think it was a senior in high school, be like, hey, here's our list. Did we accomplish it? And so they had the kid check mark, like, here you go, like accountability purposes. And so sometimes the kid would be like, oh, I didn't know that's, I see what you're doing there. But what I liked about it is going, hey, even for us thinking through, like, yes, there's some obvious things on there, but like, how am I, like, of these list of 50 things, and I'm hear me, you could add so many more to that than just 50, but I go, those are the things I want them to learn. There's values attached with that you're going, hey, okay, are we, with each kid, are we accomplishing that?
Yeah.
And giving them an opportunity to speak into that later on in there. And so I think it was just kind of a cool example that I think Tina and I are trying to use to be like, hey, let's take this and go, well, how can we apply this? And so it's good conversations to have over a date night of just being like, hey, well, how do we feel like we're doing, and what? Because it's like, hey, we want them to learn this. Well, there's levels to that. There's layers to that I want them to learn.
Onions have layers.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. So raising your kid is like an onion.
That's
you
right.
Need to add some layers.
You know what, though? Everybody likes a
each
parfait.
layer has a different stench.
There is a lot of stench with those kids. No, I just, man, I look back at those things and I love it. And there were things that I learned. And I think on the flip side of what you're saying there are things we want our kids to learn, but for me, one of the things that was important for me is there are things that I had to learn as a dad.
Oh yeah.
Specifically with 4 ladies in the house, trust me, there are still things I'm learning. Right. And Dobson writes a great book, Bringing Up Girls and Bringing Up Boys. I mean, Meg Meeker is really, she's a psychologist and a clinical psychologist. She's good. Strong fathers, strong daughters, because in the midst of this, like we talked about early on, all our kids are different. And some of those personalities are coming out, and they're getting stretched by the people that they're hanging out with. They're getting stretched by tiredness. They're getting stretched by, not seeing things match up maybe at home. And you're having to learn and adapt the way you look, the way you listen, the way you apologize, and admitting, like admit when you're wrong. Like we blew this. Dad should have stopped and helped him with the tire. You said you care about people. How come you didn't, but those things that I had to learn at times were some of the tougher things, because you're like, I think I know everything. I've got it all figured out. We just hang out. I'm the fun one. Your mom's the serious one.
Right.
Let's go.
Right. I think another one, Boundaries with Kids. Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. Townsend wrote that. I think that's helpful to see how to navigate a healthy relationship with your kid, to not enable unhealthy behaviors. But some of that is the deeper issue of like, well, do you need them to to like you?
Yeah.
Like, do you need them to be like a friend? Like there's that whole issue
Yeah.
of versus, no, I'm a parent. And what does that look like? Where do I have boundaries in those areas? And then one of the other ones is Paul David Tripp wrote a book
Yep.
just about, here's the 14, I think it was 14, like just truths about your kid. And one of them I learned that I was like, oh, that's true. Like your kid is lost.
Yeah.
Your kid will be like sinful. And so being ready to go, as a parent, am I ready to navigate that?
Yeah.
Because I know the picture of like, oh, my kid's always the best. Well, they're not. They're going to struggle. I believe in them. I'll always believe in them. But there's also parts of them that I go, ooh, that's not good. That's not healthy. And so those books have been helpful for me, and you reference them. So I just give you those because I think you're right. You, as a parent, always be studying.
Yeah.
Always be learning.
Well, and I think for Heidi, like we asked it in the first time, you can share maybe personally as well, but like as our church, like
Right.
where is this fitting in these conversations? Because we're not taking the place. We're here to help. We're here to
Partner
come
with.
alongside
Yeah.
and partner with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I just would love to share is we're supplemental. And so, yeah, I encourage the families and we do send home material every Sunday too that you can go over with your kids as well. It keeps the devotional going with them throughout the week. But there's so many great, resources out there, and you don't have to be a scholar at the Bible. Just pull from these different resources. You said your kids started with Veggie Tales. There's great
stuff in
great teachings in there. Very like biblically sound teaching. But yeah, that's just got to be part of the rhythm. We did do a little devotional and prayer with our kids every night, and sometimes with different like soccer season, sometimes our devotional was at the table all together because it does get long, and sometimes from kid to kid to kid, and you guys had more than I did. So way to go. But yeah, we want to be supplemental. We also want to partner with you though. We talk about child dedication. We dedicate ourselves to raising these children in godly homes, and in the congregation too, we dedicate ourselves to being godly examples. So, but yeah, get the kids to church and be pouring into them. I know for the kids ministry in elementary, we're really big on memorization because we want God's word to be in their hearts. So when we're not with them, God's word is still with them wherever they go, and praying and worshiping and forming relationships with other kids and with the teachers within the elementary ministry is crucial for their growth and development. And
it's so much fun. It's so much fun going down there. And if you never got a chance to watch your kid do it, like watching your kids worship and be excited and singing songs and doing actions and interacting with those leaders that, man, your leaders are great that are down there tirelessly giving of their time on weekends to serve. And it's just, I'm thankful for those leaders that you have that give that time and attention and love kids. They love being there.
And I would encourage you as a parent, get involved in this, at least even if it's once a month or anything.
Yeah.
See your elementary kid interact. Because sometimes we don't get to see it at school. Let's just be honest. We can't just go sit there in school. Now, if you get opportunities to go do that, like whether it's teachers offering, hey, we need a parent to help at this, take advantage of those moments so you can see your kid acting in a different setting than instead of just your house. But it also, I think it gives you an opportunity to learn and see, man, what's connecting with my kid.
Yeah.
What all those kind of things. And so that's why I would just encourage you. Like I know for Teen and I, like, it's hard for me on Sunday to go serve in the kids because I've got other things that I'm doing. But when we didn't have kids, we tried to make that a point because we wanted to be like, okay, what are these parents doing that we want to press in our kids later?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so helpful for parents to get involved in the kids ministry. The curriculum's all done for them. They just have to present it to the kids, and a lot of the time is large group time too. So you're not just trying to teach a small group on your own for a whole hour or something. But getting that class size smaller so there's more connection with kids, more kids can share is so important. So when parents get involved like that, then we can have that smaller class size and have more connection, have more learning time. So that's huge. Plus, you just know what they're covering. You know what you can go stem off of and cover when you get home with them. You know what's being discussed, and you can discuss it further. This last week was, every Sunday at the beginning of the month, we have a Sunday fun day. It's something different. It's a different theme, and we focus on Valentine's. We made Valentine's in the preschool, and then they were encouraged to go give it to a stranger in the lobby with their parents.
Oh,
and we
that's so
told the
funny.
parents, and we had a lady come to our team this morning saying, "What you're doing matters." I got a Valentine from a kid I didn't know on Sunday,
cool.
and it blessed me, so.
I had it happen to me. I was like this little kid with the biggest smile. Just,
Oh, I'm so
and
glad
I was
to
like,
hear
this
that.
is awesome. Well, I didn't know context at all. I was like, okay, I do feel precious because he said you are precious.
Did you feel precious,
I
Todd?
told him, I was like, I feel very precious
You
right now,
are
buddy.
precious.
Thanks. So
It's weird that
So
they use
they-
that word precious because my mind goes to Lord of the Rings right away. Like,
Mine
my
did
precious.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. But yeah, even preschoolers, it's so great. They're learning.
Yep.
They're learning to reach out and to love and encourage, which is encouragement is a huge part of this age group too.
Man, going, encouragement of them excited to go, like watching kids. Like I could think of a couple kids that come in and I get hugs and they run up and you're like, this is awesome. Or you get, and then the best question for me to separate from them to be like, hey, because their mom and dad are like, they can be done hanging out with you now. Let's go get them down checked in.
Yeah.
Like, hey, are you ready to go hang out with friends? You ready to go have a good time down there? Because we want them. That's one of the aspects of kids ministry is we want them to have fun. We want them to enjoy being there, learning about God and some of the things they're learning about. One of baptism. We've been seeing a lot of kids take that step of baptism. And we have a baptism podcast that Todd and I walked out. Just definitely encourage that. Talk about those things when they can. For us, the rule was when you can sit on my lap and tell me why you want to be baptized, that I'm not prodding you. That's because I get that question a lot from parents. Like if they can tell you why and they can articulate in their own words, and then you guys walk through that, and that's really cool.
celebrate those milestone moments.
Oh, absolutely.
Baptism is a possibility for one. I'm not saying it's going to happen in the elementary years, but it could. And walking through that and being ready to do that. But also there's other milestones along the way, especially in those elementary years of just, hey, they're starting to do well at school or they're starting to do it's a big win for them to, hey, I was struggling in this class or this. I just, as parents, celebrate those things.
Yeah.
I just learned to control my temper better this week.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's huge. Yeah.
So, well, I know we got to wrap up, but thank you guys so much for listening to this. And I hope you'll take anything from this. I think there was some really great stuff this, but if you also have questions or just questions about resources or questions about life, feel free to reach out to us. We love having these conversations and navigating, and stay tuned for next week as we'll talk about and dive into teenager.
Man, that's going to be
phase.
fantastic.
I love it.
Here we go.
All right. You guys are awesome. Have a great week.